Good Thursday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for October the 3rd. Today we are reading together here in Psalm 119, verses 49 through 72, which encompass the three sections of Zayin, Chet, and Het. These sections have three themes that coincide with them, and I'm excited to think about these themes with you and to allow this to give us something to think about as we go throughout our day today. Let me go ahead and get that text up on the screen of Psalm 119, beginning of verse 49, and we'll read along together here. Psalm 119 and verse number, not 39, excuse me, verse number 49. Psalm 119 and verse 49. Again, we're looking at three sections, the Zayin, Chet, and Het section. And remember that these sections are organized according to the Hebrew alphabet. So each of the lines of these sections in the original Hebrew writing begin with these various Hebrew. Psalm 119, verse number 49. Psalm 119, verse 49. Actually, I need to get the text up on the screen. Sorry, that went away. There we go. Psalm 119, beginning in verse number 49. Remember your word to your servant. You have given me hope through it. This is my comfort in my affliction. Your promise has given me life. The arrogant constantly ridicule me, but I do not turn away from your instruction. Yahweh, I remember your judgments from long ago and find comfort. Fury seizes me because of the wicked who reject your instruction. Your statutes are the theme of my song during my earthly life. Yahweh, I remember your name in the night. I obey your instruction. This is my practice. I obey your precepts. The next section, beginning in verse 57, the Chet section, Yahweh is my portion. I have promised to keep your words. I have sought your favor with all my heart. Be gracious to me according to your promise. I thought about my ways and turned my steps back to your decrees. I hurried, not hesitating, to keep your commands. Though the ropes of the wicked were wrapped around me, I did not forget your instruction. I rise at midnight to thank you for your righteous judgments. I am a friend to all who fear you, to those who keep your precepts. Yahweh, the earth is filled with your faithful love. Teach me your statutes. Verse 65, beginning the Chet section. Yahweh, you have treated your servant well, just as you promised. Teach me your good judgments and discernment, for I rely on your commands. Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I keep your word. You are good, and you do what is good. Teach me your statutes. The arrogant have smeared me with lies, but I obey your precepts with all my heart. Their hearts are hard and insensitive, but I delight in your instruction. It was good for me to be afflicted, so that I could learn your statutes. Instruction from your lips is better for me than thousands of gold and silver pieces. Psalm 119, verses 49 through 72, the Zayin, Chet, and Het sections. Let's think about these sections and some themes that run in each of these sections. The first theme I wanted us to notice from verses 49 through 56 is the theme of remembrance. The theme of remembrance. This section begins with, remember your word to your servant. You have given me hope through it. So the idea here is Yahweh has already given the author his word. Now the request based upon that is for Yahweh to remember it. So what could this possibly be talking about? Well, as we work our way down through the text, especially whenever we get to the idea of remembering Yahweh's judgments, of not turning away from his instruction, from obeying the instruction, from obeying his precepts and walking in the right type of practice. That reminds me a lot of what we see in Deuteronomy 28 in regard to the blessings that would come through covenant obedience. In Deuteronomy 28, beginning in verse number 1, now if you faithfully obey Yahweh your God, I apologize, I'm having some connectivity issues today, so hopefully This isn't disturbing our read too much. Let me begin again in Deuteronomy chapter 28. I don't know exactly where it cut off, but beginning verse number 20 and Deuteronomy 28, verse number 1. Again, I apologize for the connection issues today. Deuteronomy 28, verse number 1. Now, if you faithfully obey Yahweh your God and are careful to follow all his commands I'm giving you today, Yahweh your God will put you far above all the nations of the earth. These blessings will come and overtake you because you obey Yahweh your God. You will be blessed in the city and blessed in the country. Your offspring will be blessed in your land's produce and the offspring of your livestock, including the young of your herds. Your basket and kneading bowl will be blessed. You will be blessed when you come in, and blessed when you go out. Yahweh will cause the enemies who rise up against you to be defeated before you. They will march out against you from one direction, but flee from you in seven directions. Yahweh will grant you a blessing on your barns, on everything you do. He will bless you in the land Yahweh your God is giving you. Yahweh will establish you in his holy people, as he swore to you, if you obey the commands Yahweh your God and walk in his ways. Then all the peoples of the earth will see that you bear Yahweh's name, and they will stand in awe of you. Yahweh will make you prosper abundantly with offspring, the offspring of your livestock and your land's produce in the land Yahweh swore to your fathers to give you. Yahweh will open for you his abundant storehouse, the sky to give your land rain in its season, and bless all the work of your hand. You will lend to many nations, but you will not borrow. Yahweh will make you the head and not the tail. You will only move upward and never downward if you listen to Yahweh your God's commands I'm giving you today and are careful to follow them. Do not turn aside to the right or the left from all these things I am commanding you today, and do not follow other gods to worship them. So we think about, what was it that Yahweh had told the author here, or told the people that the author belonged to, that allowed them to have such great hope in Yahweh's word. I think it very well could be in reference to this idea that God blesses those who are obedient to the covenant, that he is with those that are faithful to him. So notice that even in his affliction, he had great comfort. Why? Because of the promise that had been given to him. The arrogant, they constantly ridicule the author, but the author remained set upon Yahweh's instruction. Again, not turning to the left or to the right. But notice the play here is the request for Yahweh to remember, and the request for blessing based upon Yahweh's remembrance. But notice that the author is also doing some remembering. Yahweh, I remember your judgments from long ago and find comfort. Verse number 55, Yahweh, I remember your name in the night, and I obey your instruction. This is my practice. I obey your precepts. So Yahweh had made promises of blessing to his people. It was contingent upon, though, their obedience, their faithfulness, their loyalty. Here is the author being ridiculed by the arrogance, having rage seizing him because of the wicked who reject Yahweh's instruction. But he is able to overcome that. He's able to not turn away. He's able to maintain his faithfulness. He's able to be comforted. Why? Because he knows that his continued faithfulness, his continued loyalty will lead to the blessing. So he just asks Yahweh to remember your word to your servants. You have given me hope through it. And what does the author do in return? The author remembers Yahweh as well. So remember the key theme, I believe, of verses 49 through 56, the Zion section. The second section we're looking at today, the Chet section, verses 57 through 64. I worded the theme of this one being valuing God greatly. Valuing God greatly. Yahweh is my portion, is the first line of verse 57. That word there for portion is often used to describe the dividing up of land, the inheritance of a land. So if you think about the dividing up of land and the inheritance that would come with land, you think about how great a value that is to the person receiving that inheritance. I think that's the idea here. The idea that Yahweh is what the author values. Therefore, what has the author done? I have sought your favor with all my heart. Within this particular psalm, there is so much of what the author did and what the author does Why does the author do these things? Because the author values Yahweh. The author reveres Yahweh. The author loves Yahweh. The author is dedicated to Yahweh. I have promised to keep your words. I have sought your favor with all my heart. I have thought about my ways and turn my steps back to your decree. So maybe at some point he had not valued Yahweh as he ought to have, but he recognized the folly in that and turned back to Yahweh. I hurried, not hesitating, to keep your commands. I did not forget your instruction. I rouse at midnight to thank you. I'm a friend to all who fear you, to those who keep your precepts. So here again is the manifestation of the author's love and commitment and value of Yahweh. And nothing's going to stop him. Even whenever he has made mistakes in the past, he turns his way back. Even whenever the ropes of the wicked are wrapped around him, he does not turn away from Yahweh. He is constantly focused on him. He is constantly living for him. He is constantly dedicating himself to him. And after all, there are constant reminders of Yahweh all around him. Yahweh, Yahweh, the earth is filled with your faithful love. So as he considers Yahweh's faithful love, as he considers Yahweh's covenant loyalty, what does he want? Well, he wants to be taught Yahweh's statutes even more. Even more. To be even more committed, to be even more dedicated to his God, and to be even more faithful in everything that he does. Again, the theme of valuing God greatly, having a great sense of faithfulness and loyalty to God, verses 57 through 64. Let's consider verses 65 through 72 now to finish up today, the Tet section of this psalm, verses 65 through 72. The theme here being God's goodness, being God's goodness. Look at all the language here that ties into that. The psalm begins the first couple lines with, Yahweh, you have treated your servant well. You have treated your servant well. Verse 66, teach me good judgments. Verse 68, you are good and you do what is good. Let's see, verse 71, it was good for me to be afflicted. Verse 72, instruction from your lips is better for me than 10,000 pieces of gold and silver. The theme here, God's goodness. God's goodness. God has made, again, incredible promises to his people. So the desire for the author to continue to experience the good treatment from his God is to be taught good judgment and discernment, because that's what God's goodness does. God's goodness teaches us and equips us to be able to continue to walk in his good ways. And it is good judgment and good discernment for someone to rely upon the commandments of Yahweh. Now, recognize verse 67, before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I keep your word. So here's two sections in a row that speak to the author having at one point not walked according to the way of Yahweh. And guess what? The author turned back from that. Back in verse 59, I thought about my ways and turned my steps back to your decrees. Verse 67, before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I keep your word. Now I keep your word. Now let's connect that with verse 71. It was good for me to be afflicted so that I can learn your statutes. When the person had walked away, when the person had gone astray, it seems that there was some sort of affliction that reprimanded them and that disciplined them to get back to God. Now I keep your word. Why? Why was it important for the author to keep Yahweh's word? Because he is good. And Yahweh does what is good. So of course, teach me your statutes. If you are good and if you are good and you do what is good, then obviously we can understand that the teachings that come from a being such as that would themselves be good, and they would be, when followed, would be a blessing to the obedient. So notice this person recognizes again God's goodness. This person recognizes how God treats the faithful well. So notice what the author does in verses 67 through 70. 67 through 70. Notice these themes, these continued thoughts. I keep your word. The end of verse 68, teach me your statutes. Again, the idea so they can obey them. Verse 69 says that explicitly, I obey your precepts. Verse number 70, the second line, I delight in your instruction. I delight in your instruction. Why? Why would the author keep, obey, and delight in the word, in the precepts, and in the instruction of Yahweh? Because of verse 72. Instruction from your lips is better for me than 10,000s of gold and silver pieces. Now, what is it better than? Well, it's better than the way that goes astray. That's mentioned in verse 67. It's better than the way of the arrogant who are mentioned in verse 69. It's better than the previous way that he had walked in verse number 59. God's ways are good, and they lead to further good. You know, this verse 68, Psalm 119, verse 68, I'm pretty sure is the inspiration for a tagline that is that's given in a podcast that I listened to. And at the end of each of the episodes, the podcaster says, well, as you go forth, as you leave, this podcast, listening to this podcast, and as you go back out into real life, two things he says. He says, seek to be good and seek to do good. Well, that's important for us as God's people to do for those things to be true about us, because we recognize that they are first true about God. God is good, and God does what is good. As those who seek to be his followers, we too need to be good in our character and seek to do that which is good as well. But where does it begin? It begins with him and his goodness and his character and his attributes. And these are the things we should be striving to emulate within our own lives. And at the end of the day, it leads to blessings. It's better for us to live this way than the alternative. And certainly, again, we can look at the world around us and see those who are committed to God and recognize just the better life they live. No, they might not have as much money, and yeah, bad things might happen to them, just like anybody else. But the peace and the love and the joy that God's people are able to live with certainly supersedes anything of those who belong to the world who live around them. So thinking today about the importance of remembrance, the importance of valuing God greatly, and the importance of God's goodness. Hopefully these comments today have given us something good to think about. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Again, I apologize so much for the cutting in and out. Maybe there was some glitchiness going on. I apologize. It's just the internet here from time to time just doesn't want to cooperate too much, but hopefully it won't give us too many more problems moving forward. Again, I appreciate you reading along with me today on this Thursday. We'll be back at it again tomorrow, reading together from verses 73 through 96, looking at the Yod, the Kaf, and the Lamed sections of Psalm 119. Very much looking forward to reading that with you then. Take care, and God bless.